One of the most fun and rewarding plants to grow for the home gardener starts its life not in a seed packet, but in the produce section at your local grocery store. That's right, we're talking ginger, a rhizome-producing juggernaut that's used in kitchens around the world. And like everything else we grow, it's 10 times better when it's fresh. Today, we're going to go on a ginger journey. From store-bought tubers, to sprouting, to care and maintenance, all the way to harvest, leaving no stone unturned. And it's actually pretty simple. Even if you've never grown anything in your life before, you can grow your own ginger root. It really feels like grocery store prices only seem to go one way, up. So, the more food that we can grow for ourselves, the better. And crops that grow indefinitely from just a part of themselves, well, that's just icing on the cake. Common edible ginger is a tropical herbaceous perennial native to Southeast Asia. Grown mainly for that tasty rhizome, often erroneously referred to as ginger root. Actually not a root at all, but instead a modified underground stem, ginger is used around the world as a spice as well as in traditional medicine. India leads the way, producing 43% of the world's cultivated supply, but that's not something that we're going to concern ourselves with anymore as we set out to grow our own. Typically sold as fresh, stored rhizomes of varying sizes, ginger can also be minced in jars, pickled, or even powdered. For sprouting and regrowing our own ginger at home, the fresh rhizomes are obviously what we're after. So let's start there first. Growing great ginger at home is a 4-step process. First, we gotta pick the right ginger for sprouting, followed by properly planting up those rhizomes. After that, it's all about the care and maintenance of the ginger plant itself, eventually leading to that harvest. So, let's go ahead and pick the right rhizomes first to get us going. To the casual observer, all ginger must look pretty much the same. Thin, dry skin with a fibrous, fragrant yellow inside. Great for cooking with, but for sprouting and regrowing, we're looking for a specific age and quality of rhizome. Ginger re-sprouts from active growth sites on its outer skin, not too dissimilar in theory to the eyes that are found on potatoes. In ginger rhizomes, though, they're always found along the outer edge, and as they get close to sprouting, they're very easy to spot. Like potatoes, each active growing site represents a brand new ginger plant. So, if you plant up a rhizome with 5 active growing sites, plan on sprouting about 4 to 5 new plants. You can quickly see how growing just a couple of ginger plants at home can be such a money saver. So, when you're trying to decide which ginger pieces to sprout, look for the freshest, youngest rhizomes that are firm and somewhat smooth. Dried out, squishy, or ragged pieces should be avoided at all costs, as getting those ones to sprout could prove difficult, if not impossible. Honestly, I've never seen a ginger bin at the store that didn't have at least a few good pieces in it. So, be diligent here, as future success is gonna depend on it. With our ginger all picked out, it's time to get planting. There's 2 ways to do this, and both are going to get you to a fresh ginger harvest. However, the first thing we need to do, regardless of how we plant the ginger, is to soak the rhizomes overnight. Ginger, like a lot of other crops in the grocery store, are often sprayed and coated with growth retardants to prevent them from sprouting on the shelf. By soaking the ginger pieces first, we can wash that off, allowing us to grow from them. Also, as an added bonus, the act of soaking seems to actually stimulate the growth sites to spring into action. A bowl of regular tap water at room temperature overnight is gonna suffice. Nothing too complicated or fancy here, and the good rhizomes will always sink. Okay, with our ginger fully submerged and soaked overnight, we can go straight to planting it up. especially if you live in a warm climate or if you're growing in a greenhouse. Growing ginger in pots and containers, which is by far the simplest way, 8 to 10 inches of soil is usually deep enough, but you're going to want a pot with substantial width. Because of their low, wide dimensions, fabric grow bags are absolutely perfect for this. Remember, ginger grows horizontal subsurface rhizomes. Depth means very little to this crop. It's all about having the room to grow and spread. Don't worry though, this part is really easy. First, fill up your pot or container almost all the way to the top with a quality potting mix. Next, place your ginger right on top, 4 to 6 inches apart if you're growing more than one piece. Then, cover them up with that same potting mix, no more than an inch deep. Finally, give them a good soaking and we're done planting our ginger. Going forward, if you can keep the temperature stable above 75 degrees Fahrenheit, this is a perfectly legitimate and easy way to plant and start your ginger. Kept moist but not soggy, it should sprout in about 2 to 4 weeks. Now, if you're like me and it's never warm enough when it's time to sprout your ginger, or you want to get a head start on the season because your summer days are finite, well then we need to pre-sprout our ginger early indoors. It's super easy. Let me show you how. First things first, soak those ginger pieces overnight just like we did before. I say pieces because I like to include no more than 3 to 5 shoots on each rhizome to give the ginger the space it needs to grow. While your ginger is soaking, make up a shallow tray of about 1 inch of moist coconut fiber. Peat moss does work as well, it's just not as environmentally friendly. I try to keep the cocoa fiber as level as possible to ensure that the moisture stays consistent and even. Once your ginger has been soaking for about 24 hours, place the pieces about 1 to 2 inches apart on top of the coconut fiber. Tighter spacing than you'd normally be planting them, yes, but not so cramped that they're actually on top of each other or even touching. Cover them up with another inch of that moist coconut fiber and keep them at 80 to 85 degrees Fahrenheit. Within a week, in these warm, humid conditions, your ginger is gonna sprout. Shoots first, followed by the roots a week or so after that. Now, if it's still too cold out, the ginger can be kept like this for about a month or so. Or you could plant it up straight away, weather permitting. Like I said, pretty easy stuff. So if you have a really short winter, start your ginger like this 4 to 6 weeks before your intended planting date. Planting the pre-sprouted rhizomes is the exact same as when we did the dormant ones. Fill up your pot or container first, then simply place the pre-started ginger right on top, observing those 4 to 6 inch spacing rules. Over the course of its long life cycle, your ginger is gonna multiply. That's the whole idea here. So, even just one plant in the center is gonna give you a good harvest. You can plant more to really pack it in here, but as you're gonna see at the end, one will also do the trick. Cover it up with a skim coating of soil, give it a good soaking, and that's how you head start your ginger when you live in a colder climate. No matter which way you chose to start, you'll be left with a shallow planted ginger crop spaced 4 to 6 inches apart in a nice organic potting mix in a container that's at least 8 to 10 inches deep. Like we mentioned, ginger is a fully tropical plant, and it needs to be kept above 70 degrees Fahrenheit at all times. Yeah, a few dips here or there is not going to be the end of the world, but prolonged exposure below 50 degrees, well, that could kill the plant. Full, direct sun works best, but ginger really does seem to dislike wind as well as exposure. Shelter by using other larger plants or structures such as fences and greenhouses really can help these guys. As for moisture, ginger is a water-loving plant. In fact, some of the ornamental varieties are even semi-aquatic. The kind of ginger we're growing at home for food should never be allowed to dry out, but standing water is an absolute no-no. So excellent drainage is going to be key. Nutrient-wise, because we're growing in a container setup, we want to start out with a pretty rich, organic heavy mixture. Beyond that, if you are going to supplemental fertilize, you always want to go with a balanced NPK. Ginger is always going to be a long crop, upwards of 6+ months. So I try to feed mine 3 times. Once at the time of planting, then again a couple of months later, and then once more a month before harvest. Simply water it in with one of your scheduled waterings and your ginger is gonna be happy. As we just mentioned, ginger is a long crop to grow. Your plants are probably going to be 7 to 8 months old before they're ready to harvest. However, just like potatoes, we can harvest baby ginger. The immature rhizomes are just as delicious as the mature ones, and they don't seem to develop that armor-like skin on the outside. I find anywhere after 4 months of growing, you can start picking the immature rhizomes. Now, you'll be leaving a lot of production on the table as the ginger will double or even quadruple in size as it reaches maturity. But if you need your ginger fix or your season is super short, sometimes there's no other choice. For the larger, mature rhizomes, well, that's going to start when the plants reach 6 months of age, usually older. The easiest way to tell that your ginger is mature and ready for harvest is when the foliage and the flowers begin to fail. They'll turn yellow, brown, crispy, and all dried up. At this point, you know that your ginger is ready to pick. No need to go searching deep down, even the mature ginger grows right at the surface. Now, the young ginger that we picked before is not going to store for very long, maybe a couple of weeks or so. But mature rhizomes that have developed that familiar skin coating are going to keep at room temperature for months, which is nice because that's going to take us right up until it's time to start a new batch for the next year. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's go ahead and recap all that we learned today about growing our own ginger at home. Ginger is a popular tropical perennial plant from Southeast Asia, revered for its fragrant, delicious rhizomes. Not a true root tuber like, say, carrots, beets, or even potatoes, ginger is actually a modified subsurface horizontal stem. This is beneficial for us because it readily sprouts and regrows from itself. Young, fresh ginger rhizomes sprout on specific sites along their outer edges when exposed to heat and moisture. There's 2 ways to plant up your ginger, but first you should soak it overnight. Once you do that, 80 to 85 degrees Fahrenheit seems to be the magic temperature to get it going. You can pre-sprout your ginger and then plant it up later when the weather is more favorable, or if you live in a warmer climate, you can plant it straight into its final container. Planted really shallow, ginger grows laterally instead of down, so a pot that's wider instead of taller is going to be ideal. A moderate feeder over its relatively long life cycle, ginger, though, absolutely loves water, but never standing in it. Like all plants, drainage with ginger is key. When growing, full, direct sun works best, at least 6 hours a day if you can manage it. Like we said, ginger is completely tropical. Never let those temperatures dip below 70 degrees Fahrenheit. Cooler temperatures are most definitely going to affect your harvest at best or kill the plants at worst. Speaking of that harvest, ginger can be picked as a baby skinless rhizome after about 4 months. It tastes the same as the mature stuff, just much smaller. Left to grow, your ginger will be ready for its final harvest when the foliage begins to die off. That's your signal that it's time to pick. Store your ginger at room temperature and get ready to start the process all over again in a couple of months. Ginger is an amazing Asian spice, in my opinion, with no equal. And as one of the few crops that can regrow from just a piece of itself, the home gardener can grow a near infinite supply, never having to purchase another rhizome again. Hopefully today I've shown you all the ins and outs of growing your own at home. Hey, best of luck with your ginger, guys, and I'll see you soon. Hey, thanks so much for watching, guys. I appreciate the support more than you know. And if you're getting value from these videos, please like and share them to spread the word and help your fellow gardener to grow better.